The sterile gleam of the operating theater was supposed to be a sanctuary, a place where life was fought for, protected, not a trap. 1 minute, Dr. Lena Petrova was running through pre-op checks, the rhythmic beep of her brother's heart monitor a constant, comforting presence in the intensive care unit. The next, a blinding, emerald flash seared her retinas, followed by a gut-wrenching whine that tore through the silence of the hospital floor. An EMP. The air itself seemed to crackle, then die. Utter darkness consumed everything, thick and sudden. Every monitor flatlined. Every life support system sputtered into a terrifying, final silence. The emergency lights, a sickly, pulsing red, painted the frantic faces of nurses, transforming their panic into grotesque masks. This wasn't a power surge. This wasn't an accident. This was a targeted, cold, calculated strike, designed to bring down the one system keeping her brother, comatose after the accident, alive. His heart monitor now a flat, ominous line. A silent countdown had begun. His life, a fragile, fading thread, severing with every passing second of forced darkness. Someone wanted him dead. And by extension, anyone who knew about him, anyone who cared. The heavy ICU door creaked open, not with the hopeful promise of light, but with the ominous silhouette of a figure, large and unhurried, framed against the distant, flickering hallway. They weren't here for her. They were here for the final kill. But Lena had a secret, a past buried beneath years of medical journals and ethical oaths, a past that knew how to fight in the dark, a past that was about to be unleashed. The world shattered, then reformed, not as solid ground but as a deluge of pure information, searing itself onto Ethan's very being. One moment the sterile hum of the neural interface, the next, a violent plunge into Alara's fracturing consciousness. It was beautiful, a sprawling metropolis built of forgotten dreams and shimmering recollections, but it was also dying. Towers of thought imploded silently, crystalline structures of memory dissolved into digital dust, falling away into an abyssal void below. The air itself throbbed with the ghost of her life, a symphony of joy and sorrow now reduced to a frantic, discordant scream. He gasped, not for air, but for purchase, his mind reeling from the sheer, overwhelming chaos. This wasn't just a mission. It was an invasion of the most sacred space, a desperate scramble through the ruins of the woman he knew, before she was completely gone. Ethan fought to orient himself, his every step a battle against the mindscape's violent tremors. He ducked under a cascade of collapsing data, the impact sending phantom shockwaves through his core. The air was thick with the dust of forgotten time, yet amidst the cacophony, a whisper began to coalesce, fragmented, spectral echoes of Alara's voice, younger, vibrant, but laced with an unsettling urgency. The code, you must find the code. It phased in and out like a radio signal struggling for reception. Then, more chilling, the hunters. They're coming for it. He knew the mission was vital, but hearing his mother, a specter of her past self, warning him from within her own collapsing mind, ratcheted the stakes to an unbearable pitch. Every shadow seemed to stretch, every silence grew heavy with unseen threats, making the crumbling city feel less like a memory and more like a trap. The whisper solidified into a terrifying reality. A shudder rippled through the already unstable landscape, and from the depths of a distorted alleyway, a figure manifested. It was a shifting, shadowy anomaly, a glitch in the fabric of Alara's mind, moving with an unnatural, jarring speed that defied logic. This was no mere malfunction. This was a hunter. Its presence seemed to actively unravel the environment, tearing at the edges of reality, causing nearby structures to flicker and phase out of existence. Adrenaline surged through Ethan, overriding his terror with a primal instinct for flight. He broke into a desperate sprint, his boots pounding on the decaying pathways, every fiber of his being screaming that he was no longer alone, no longer just a visitor, but prey in a game of digital cat and mouse where the prize was his mother's last secret, and perhaps his own survival. He pushed himself harder, the intruder's distorted cry echoing in his wake, until he found a brief, desperate reprieve. The collapsing cityscape gave way to something strangely solid, a distorted, monochrome rendering of Alara's childhood home. The walls were faded, the furniture skeletal, but it was undeniably her, a core memory structure, holding firm against the encroaching chaos. Inside, the chase's urgency subsided, replaced by a profound, almost suffocating emotional weight. Every faded photograph, every warped toy, whispered stories of a life lived, a mind whole. This wasn't just a place of refuge. It was an archive of identity, a glimpse into the innocent origins of the brilliant woman he knew, now reduced to this ghostly echo. Here, amidst the quiet sadness, the true cost of his mission hit him with crushing force, not just the global stakes, but the unbearable tragedy of her fading essence. A jarring cut, the sterile, cold reality of the medical bay slammed into view. Ethan's mind, still reeling from the mindscape's chaos, registered the frantic beeps and urgent whispers of his team. His own body, prone on the neural interface rig, twitched. A holographic monitor dominated the scene, displaying Alara's vitals in urgent, flashing red. Her neural activity spiked then flatlined, a terrifying dance on the edge of collapse. Dr. Eris, her face tight with worry, leaned in close to the comms. Ethan, her core identity matrices are degrading faster than predicted. You're losing connection stability. If you don't find it soon, we won't be able to pull you out without severe neurological damage. For both of you. The chilling certainty in her voice was a stark reminder. The labyrinth he navigated was not just a mental construct, but a living, dying prison, and his own life, inextricably linked to his mother's, was now on the clock. Back in Alara's mind, the fragile peace of the childhood home evaporated. Ethan found his path abruptly, impossibly, blocked by a titanic barrier, the wall of forgetting. It wasn't solid, but a shimmering, translucent behemoth composed of swirling, chaotic fragments, half-formed images, garbled sounds, fleeting sensations, all fighting to coalesce into something coherent before dissolving into static. It pulsed with an oppressive, almost suffocating energy, pushing back against his very presence, a physical manifestation of Alara's mind actively resisting his progress. This wasn't just an obstacle. It was her dementia made manifest, a profound, impenetrable barrier erected by a mind striving to protect what little it had left, or perhaps, to hide what was most precious. Despair flickered, hot and sharp. How could he possibly navigate through pure oblivion? Frustration gnawed at him, but then a faint resonance stirred in the depths of his own memories. A game, a riddle Alara taught him as a child, a silly rhyme meant to teach him about patterns and observation. He closed his eyes, replaying her voice, her gentle laugh. Opening them, he looked at the wall of forgetting anew, not as a barrier, but as a puzzle. There, amidst the chaos, a subtle glitch, a recurring motif, a specific sequence of fragmented colors and shapes that resonated with his childhood game. He reached out, his fingers tracing the pattern, whispering the answer to their forgotten riddle. With a low hum, the wall rippled, then slowly, reluctantly, a section of the chaotic fragments parted, revealing a narrow, pulsating passage. It was a key not just to a path, but to Alara herself, a testament to the enduring power of their shared history, even in this crumbling domain. Stepping through the parting wall was like entering a living, breathing organism. The passage ahead was a dizzying, winding corridor, not of solid rock, but of intricately intertwined memory strands. Some glowed with vibrant, almost painful brilliance, representing cherished moments. Others were dark, shadowy tendrils, hinting at hidden fears or forgotten pains. The path was impossibly narrow, constantly shifting, undulating like a colossal, ethereal serpent coiling deeper into Alara's subconscious. Each step required absolute precision, a delicate balance between fear and faith. Loose memory fragments drifted past him like phosphorescent plankton, occasionally brushing against his skin, sending fleeting echoes of joy or sorrow through his mind. He was moving into the very core of Alara's identity, a fragile, unstable realm where the rules of reality held no sway, and the true test of his will had only just begun. The illusion of peace shatters as the labyrinthine corridors around Ethan ripple with malicious intent. From the swirling fog of forgotten memories, multiple glitching figures coalesce the mind intruders. They move with unnatural speed, not merely attacking, but feeding. Tendrils of distorted light erupt from their forms, lashing out, attempting to siphon precious data directly from the very fabric of Alara's mindscape. Each successful extraction sends a searing jolt through Ethan, a phantom pain that echoes the very real agony of his mother's mind being ravaged. He dodges, weaves, a desperate ballet amidst collapsing architecture and flashing digital shrapnel, realizing too late the true horror. They aren't just hunting him, they're cannibalizing the memories he's sworn to protect. Every fragment they steal is a piece of Alara that can never be recovered, a permanent scar on the canvas of her identity. Driven by instinct, Ethan lunges, disrupting an intruder's data siphoning attempt. The impact is a violent surge, a feedback loop that overloads his own neural interface. For a searing, blinding moment, his mind is flooded. Not static, but a torrent of raw, encrypted information. A dizzying cascade of numbers, geometric patterns, a fragmented, star-like image, and one clear, echoing word, or ion. The burst of knowledge is overwhelming, a shockwave through his very being, but also a revelation. This is it. This is the key. But the intruders recoil, not defeated, but momentarily stunned, their forms briefly flickering into sharper, more defined malice. The fragment is invaluable, yet its acquisition has left him reeling, his focus fragmented, his very consciousness momentarily fractured by the sheer volume of illicit data. A jarring, brutal cut. The cold, sterile reality of the operating theater slams into view. Alara's physical body, tethered to a dozen glowing wires and monitors, is convulsing gently, a shallow, desperate tremor that speaks volumes. Her breath catches, a rattling gasp, then steadies, only to falter again. The insistent, anxious beeps of the life support machines crescendo, a terrifying symphony of instability. Medical technicians, their faces etched with frantic concentration, move with practiced urgency around the bed, adjusting dials, administering precise doses. Ethan's internal voice, usually so resolute, is now a whisper of self-doubt. Every fragment he steals, every step deeper into her mind, exacts a real, physical toll. Is the key worth this price? The ticking clock of her fragile life echoes louder than any digital warning. Back in the fractured mindscape, Ethan, still reeling from the data surge and Alara's physical decline, presses onward. The oppressive, chaotic landscape eventually gives way to an imposing landmark, a colossal, crystalline structure piercing the turbulent cognitive skies. This is it, Alara's former laboratory, now transformed into a fortress of memory. Its facets shimmer with reflected knowledge, an architectural marvel of her genius, yet it radiates an almost palpable sense of guarded secrets. It's not a welcoming sight. Its sheer, unyielding surfaces suggest a profound, deliberate resistance to intrusion. A sanctuary, yes, but one designed to protect its contents from everyone, even the mind's rightful heir. This isn't just a place. It's a testament to Alara's intellectual might, a final bastion where the Orion key might finally reside. Inside the shimmering fortress, the true nature of Alara's genius unfolds. Ethan doesn't find armed guards, but something far more sophisticated, sentinels of truth. These are not flesh and blood, but elegant, autonomous memory constructs, glowing geometric forms that hover silently, assessing him. Designed by Alara herself, they are programmed to protect her deepest secrets through intellectual challenge, not brute force. They project fragmented images, whispered questions not about passwords, but about her life, her principles, her very identity. Each answer is a test of his connection to her, a measure of his understanding. Failure isn't a physical blow, but a rejection, a barrier that threatens to lock him out permanently. He must prove himself worthy, not just as her son, but as someone who truly knows her, before he can access the truth. Ethan's desperate answers are correct, unlocking the final barrier. The sentinels recede, revealing a hidden chamber. Stepping inside, he is bathed in an ethereal light as a vivid, hyper-realistic memory projection flickers to life. Before him stands Alara, years younger, vibrant and brilliant, in the prime of her intellectual prowess. She's in a vast, futuristic auditorium, passionately presenting a groundbreaking concept, the Orion Project. Holographic displays of intricate, interconnected global networks swirl around her, a breathtaking vision of unified data streams and planetary connectivity. The sheer scope of her genius is overwhelming, a stark reminder of the woman she was before dementia claimed her. This isn't just a memory. It's a window into the mind that conceived a solution, yet perhaps also unleashed an unimaginable danger. The memory deepens, Alara's voice resonating with unwavering conviction. Ethan witnesses her articulating Orion's true, initial purpose. It was never intended as a tool of control, but a benevolent global network designed to connect and heal. A digital nervous system for humanity, facilitating unprecedented communication, sharing knowledge, bridging divides, even mending the fractured social fabric of a world on the brink. Her eyes shine with idealism, a pure, uncorrupted vision of a future where technology elevates rather than enslaves. It's a stark contrast to the global catastrophe it now threatens, a tragic irony that pierces Ethan's heart. He sees the mother he knew, the one who believed in hope, and understands that somewhere along the way, her magnificent creation was twisted, its purpose perverted. With newfound clarity and a heavy heart, Ethan reaches out, attempting to interface with a stable data stream emanating from the Orion memory projection, hoping to extract the definitive key. But as his fingers brush the shimmering light, the stream doesn't solidify. Instead, it shimmers, distorts, and violently glitches. The benevolent golden light warps into jagged, dark tendrils, pulling away, dissolving into digital noise. A sophisticated, sickeningly familiar pattern emerges, an echo of the intruder's code. It was a trap, a cleverly constructed decoy, designed to lure him into a false sense of security, to waste precious time, perhaps even to bait him into a more vulnerable position. The enemy is closer, smarter, and far more insidious than he ever imagined. The game isn't just about finding the key, it's about surviving the mind itself. The schematic for Orion glowed, a blueprint of hope, but even as Ethan pored over the intricate details, the memory chamber began to warp. A sickening, guttural groan vibrated through the very fabric of Alara's mindscape. Suddenly, a shadow detached itself from the encroaching distortions, coalescing into the lead mind intruder, larger, more malevolent than any before. Its voice, a venomous hiss that slithered directly into Ethan's consciousness, revealed a horrifying truth. Foolish boy, you seek to save, but we have twisted your mother's greatest work. From within, we have corrupted Orion, honed it into a weapon against humanity itself. This is not rescue. This is our ascension. A chilling revelation that turned Ethan's blood to ice. As the intruder's shadowy tendrils began to infect the very code of the project, preparing it for activation. The intruder's words were a death knell. The entire fortress-like lab began to violently convulse, metallic structures tearing apart with ear-splitting shrieks as the intruder intensified its corruption. Ethan, propelled by sheer adrenaline, launched himself into a desperate sprint, his mind screaming in protest as the floor buckled and fell away behind him. Jagged shards of memory glass rained down, narrowly missing his head. The intruder wasn't just corrupting the project. It was actively trying to crush him, slamming invisible force fields in his path, sending shockwaves that threw him against collapsing walls. He dodged a colossal falling beam, leaping over a chasm that ripped open in the floor, the edge crumbling beneath his fingertips. Every muscle screamed, every breath was a gasp of pain and desperation, until he burst through a final collapsing doorway, narrowly escaping the fortress as it imploded behind him. A jarring cut back to the sterile, unforgiving reality of the lab. Alara's vitals monitors shrieked in unison, a cacophony of red alerts flashing across their screens. Her body, connected to a spiderweb of tubes and wires, began to convulse violently on the biobed. The medical team, their faces etched with frantic worry, swarmed her, their movements precise yet desperate, shouting urgent commands. "Cardiac arrest imminent," one cried, as another prepared defibrillator paddles. Dr. Eris's voice, strained and sharp, cut through Ethan's comms, echoing the panic. "Ethan, you're tearing her apart. Your continued deep presence in her mind is inflicting catastrophic physical damage. You have to pull back, now, or she won't survive this." The weight of his mission, now intertwined with his mother's imminent death, pressed down on him, suffocating. Battered, bruised, and emotionally eviscerated, Ethan stumbled into a desolate, forgotten corner of Alara's mindscape. It was a wasteland of forgotten memories, a muted gray expanse of broken fragments and crumbling, faceless statues. He collapsed, the weight of his mother's suffering and the intruder's chilling revelations crushing him. Was this worth it? This desperate pursuit of a global salvation, if it meant erasing the very essence of the woman who gave him life? If it meant shredding the last threads of her identity, transforming her into an empty vessel? The question burned, a searing brand of doubt, echoing in the vast emptiness of his despair. He buried his face in his hands, defeated, unsure if he could take another step, another blow, knowing it directly harmed his mother. As Ethan wrestled with the gnawing despair, a faint, ethereal sound began to coalesce around him. Not a direct memory, not a solid image, but a gentle resonance, the soft, comforting whispers of Alara's voice from his earliest childhood. Indistinct words of lullabies, of encouragement, of boundless love. It was a warmth, an enduring echo of her soul, reaching out across the chasm of her illness and the chaos of her mind. This wasn't a construct, not a trap. It was the pure, unwavering essence of her maternal love, a fragile beacon in the encroaching darkness. A jolt, a surge of renewed strength, coursed through his veins, reminding him of who he was, and who she was, before the world began to fracture. Emerging from his moment of respite, Ethan found the mindscape outside the fortress in an even greater state of chaotic disarray. Memory fragments spun like debris in a hurricane, the very landscape groaning under an invisible strain. Then, the most terrifying vision yet manifested before him. A ghostly, shimmering reflection of himself, faded and distorted, his features dissolving into static. Around it, the letters of his own name, Ethan, swirled like dust, slowly disintegrating, one by one, into the void. A cold dread gripped him. This was it, the precipice. The day Mom forgot my name was no longer a distant threat. It was a horrifying, undeniable reality, unfolding before his eyes. The clock had run out. The final thread of their connection was fraying, about to snap forever. Overwhelmed, his heart pounding a desperate rhythm against his ribs, Ethan felt the precipice of surrender. He was losing her irrevocably. Just as the darkness threatened to swallow him whole, a small, impossibly vibrant memory flared to life amidst the chaos. It was a pristine, untarnished moment. Alara, younger, her face radiant with love, gifting him a small, silver locket as a child. Her voice, clear as a bell, echoed through the mindscape, cutting through the static. "Always remember where you belong, my bright boy. This is your anchor." The simple act, the profound words, provided a sudden, undeniable anchor, a lifeline in the deluge of forgetting. This was a truth, a memory too powerful to be corrupted. Guided by the locket's vivid imagery, a new pathway shimmered into existence. A hidden, illuminated vein in the collapsing labyrinth. It pulled him forward, away from the encroaching chaos, leading him deeper, past layers of fragmented consciousness, to what felt like the very heart of Alara's being. He stepped into a vast, luminous cavern, bathed in a serene, golden white light. In its center, a swirling, ethereal sphere pulsed gently, radiating warmth and peace. This was it, the absolute core of Alara's mind, a nexus where her most fundamental memories of self, her identity, her love, Her essence resided, miraculously untouched by the encroaching corruption. A profound sense of awe washed over him, mingled with a fragile, soaring hope. The key had to be here. At the very heart of the crumbling labyrinth, a new dawn broke. Not the harsh glare of the intruders, but a soft, golden light, coalescing into a figure of breathtaking serenity. It was Alara, younger, vibrant, her eyes holding the wisdom of 1,000 forgotten memories. She was a guardian, a stable fragment, and her presence was a balm and a challenge. "Why do you chase ghosts, Ethan?" Her voice echoed, calm yet profound, like a melody from a distant past. "What is the true cost of your remembrance, and what purpose fuels this desperate quest? Tell me of the first star we ever named together, the one that guided us through the darkest night." Her words, a soft torrent, pulled at the threads of his deepest regrets, forcing him to confront not just the mission, but the very essence of his love and the burden of his ambition. This was more than a test. It was a plea, a final chance for connection before the abyss. Just as the answer formed on Ethan's lips, a violent rift tore through the tranquil nexus. The air crackled with malevolent energy, and the lead-mind intruder, a shadowy figure coalescing into the sneering face of a man Ethan recognized, Dr. Eris Thorne. His mother's former protégé, burst forth. "Fool! You cling to a dying ember." Thorne's voice, distorted by rage and corrupted power, snarled through the space, laden with years of festering jealousy. "This mind, this legacy, was meant for me." His intent was clear, brutal. Not to steal, but to annihilate. Dark tendrils of pure chaotic data erupted from him, lashing out at the delicate crystalline structures of the core. The nexus groaned, fractured, and the golden light of the guardian flickered, threatened by the intruder's consuming malice. This wasn't just a pursuit. It was a personal vendetta, fueled by a betrayal that echoed through the very fabric of Alara's fractured mind. The nexus became a battleground, a maelstrom of light and shadow, memory and destruction. Ethan, spurred by a primal scream of defiance, moved. He understood this mind, remembered the intricacies Alara had taught him. He willed fragments of Alara's memory, towering libraries of knowledge, swirling nebulae of scientific discovery, to coalesce, forming shimmering shields that deflected Thorne's destructive blasts. The guardian Alara, ethereal but resolute, manifested waves of protective energy, her form radiating fierce maternal protection. Every deflected blow, every shattering memory fragment, sent shockwaves through Ethan. He could feel his mother's mental landscape fighting back, a desperate, final stand against the man who sought to erase her entirely. It was a frantic dance of dodging, defending, and desperate counterattacks, fueled by the deepest parts of his love and the urgency of their shared purpose. Despite their desperate stand, Thorne's power grew, fueled by his consuming hatred, fracturing the core's protective layers. The guardian Alara, her form beginning to flicker, looked at Ethan, her eyes filled with an unbearable sadness, a profound, selfless love. She knew, to truly stop him, to save the core, to save him, required more than defense. It required the ultimate sacrifice. "My son, remember me," she whispered, her voice a fading echo that resonated deeper than any physical sound. She turned, a luminous beacon, and hurled herself not at Thorne, but into the heart of the collapsing nexus. Her light flared, impossibly bright, coalescing into a shimmering, impenetrable barrier that instantly pushed Thorne back, severing his connection, but also hers. The cost was absolute. She was making herself the final lock, forever separating herself from the fading fragments that made up her identity, and from the son who desperately needed her. As the guardian Alara's light solidified into an unbreakable, shimmering shell, sealing Thorne out, the core nexus within pulsed with an urgent, victorious rhythm. The sacrifice had worked. The encrypted key, now fully decrypted, materialized before Ethan's eyes. A complex sequence of crystalline data, a precise geographical location shimmering with coordinates, and a final, undeniable message that pierced his soul like a spear of ice and fire. Her voice, clear and strong as it once was, echoed directly into his consciousness. Save them, my son. Remember me. It was a command, a legacy, and a final heartbreaking plea. The weight of the world, the entirety of his mother's brilliance, and the searing agony of her ultimate goodbye settled upon him. He had the key, but the price of retrieval felt immeasurable. The key was his, clutched in the recesses of his mind, but the victory was short-lived. Without the guardian Alara's stabilizing presence, the entire mindscape, having been pushed beyond its limits, violently convulsed. The shimmering barrier around the core began to crack, sending fissures of pure static through the surrounding reality. Alarms, piercing and high-pitched, tore through the silence of the neural interface chamber in the outside world. The system, detecting catastrophic instability, began its forced ejection sequence. Images of his mother's memories, fleeting smiles, scientific breakthroughs, whispered lullabies, flashed and then dissolved into chaotic noise, ripped away from him in a maelstrom of breaking light and crushing pressure. His consciousness was yanked, violently, back to his own body, leaving behind a mindscape collapsing into irreversible, permanent isolation. He had retrieved the key, but Alara's mind was gone, locked away forever. The silence of the rooftop, broken only by the city's distant hum, was a stark contrast to the chaos below. Her hands, still trembling from the grapple with the assassin, gripped the cold steel railing. Across from her, silhouetted against the nascent dawn, stood Thorne, the man who orchestrated her brother's accident, the EMP, the entire deadly charade. His smile, even in the dim light, was a predator's. "You were always tenacious, Lena," he purred, his voice slick with menace. "A shame you didn't stay buried in your operating theater." But Lena wasn't the broken doctor he expected. She was the ghost of her past, reborn. "You underestimated me, Thorne," she retorted, her voice a raw whisper of steel. "You underestimated what I would do for my family." He lunged, a flash of steel in his hand, but Lena was faster. Years of forgotten training, muscle memory honed in shadows, surged through her. A swift parry, a brutal counter. The fight was short, visceral. He collapsed, clutching his side, his predatory smile replaced by a gasp of shock. She stood over him, not triumphant, but weary. "It was never about revenge," she stated, looking past him to the rising sun. "It was about justice, and ensuring no one else loses what I almost lost." The distant wail of sirens grew louder, a promise of order returning. Lena watched the dawn break, the city slowly awakening, knowing her sanctuary was gone. But her brother was safe, and a dormant killer had found her purpose once more.